In the beginning, I could not sit down and relax while I was taking a shower. I guess this is actually a bit of a culture shock. The freshman year was the roughest year. Becoming friends with people takes a lot of effort. Since I was 13 or 14 years old, I wanted to become an English teacher in Japan. The immigration office declined my request. When we were living in the Midwest, you can go to a store and you just walk past somebody. They'll be like, oh, hey man, nice shirt. They would pretty much constantly ask you like, hey man, how's it going? Every single weekend we would hear somebody shouting and screaming.
You know what? I got 2 GameCubes and you want to leave me?
And then they would bang the door. Astronomy was one of my favorite classes. The idea of understanding how the universe works. There's some kind of magic going on. I would sit in the comments 3-4 hours. That's where we got into some kind of really weird kind of conversations.
Welcome to the very first episode of Back to College. I'll be your host, Zach Stevenson. I'm super excited to launch today because today, August 30th, 2023, is the first day of classes in the new academic year for Augustana University, which is where I went to college. And that means it's been 7 years since I started college, which may not seem like a lot for some, but for me, I'd go back in a heartbeat. I had no idea that I'd be entering the best 4 years of my life. And that's why I wanted to start this podcast and reconnect with old friends and classmates and just relive the good times that we had, the good, the bad, and just share and paint a little bit of context of what it was like. So to learn a little bit about me, this was my degree. I started at Augustana in the fall 2016 and graduated in the spring 2020. I finished with a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and Business Administration. That's pretty cool. But college is so much more than this, and that's why I wanted to jump on here and talk to a few of my friends and classmates from all around the world, actually. And that's the other thing too, is Augustana had such a strong international program. So there was tons and tons of international students, really bold and ambitious people who are highly driven to, who really care about the world and really want to make a proper impact. And that's why I'm excited to bring some people on. So with that said, let's jump straight into it. Joining us in the classroom today has been my best friend at Augustana right from the get-go. And that's how he earns the #1 spot at episode 1. Beginning his journey at the same time as me, he graduated 1 semester early with his English degree. He has since changed routes and is now working and studying in healthcare. Calling all the way from his country of origin, Norway, please enjoy this very first episode of Back to College with Kevin Hansen. Kevin, my first question to you is, would you be able to describe what it was like coming from Norway and that first day of travel that you had going from Norway to college in the US?
Yeah, so my first day going from Norway to the US was mostly being on an airplane. And when I got to the airport, I was greeted by 2 people whose name is Nishma and David. And we would actually go to a Mexican restaurant, which I had never been to before, which is called Giliberto's.
Gillies.
Or Gillies, yeah.
But you don't have Mexican in Norway.
We don't really have many Mexican restaurants, no. Unless you go to Oslo, but I'm from the southern part of Norway.
Right.
So it's hard getting our hands on authentic Mexican food. But we do love tacos here in Norway. So every Friday we have our Taco Friday, and I think it's Taco Tuesdays in the US, right?
Yeah.
But we have it on Fridays, so we eat tacos every Friday. So it was interesting experiencing authentic Mexican burritos. And that was the first thing I did when I got to the US. And then I got to my college dorm, and I was showed a little bit around, but I was super tired. And the picture, I don't have my old ID here, but my picture, I look super bad. I looked like I was, yeah, super tired.
Yeah, I think a lot of us could probably relate to not having the greatest uh, first ID pictures that we got when we got there, because especially for a lot of us, we came long way just to college, and by the time we got there, we're all pretty buggered. So I'm just curious, Kevin, what were you feeling as you left Norway? Were you happy? Were you excited? Were you sad?
I was, for the most part, excited. I didn't really feel any sadness as I left because I've always been a free soul kind of person. I've been to a handful of different countries in Europe, as well as I've been to Thailand twice, and I've been to Japan. And I went to Japan all alone when I became 18 years old. And the reason for that was pretty much because I just wanted a break. I wanted to get away. And it was kind of the same thing with the US. I thought it would be a good idea because my bachelor was going to be in English. And I thought it was a good idea to study English in an English-speaking country instead of, studying English here in Norway. So, yeah, I was excited to get away from Norway.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've done plenty of adventuring, and it kind of seems to make sense that you decided, well, if you're going to do English, why not do it in an English-speaking country? You obviously didn't pick Australia, which, I would have liked you to, but I guess by choosing the US, well, that's where I met you, so it all kind of worked out.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, where did that desire to learn English come from?
All right, so since I was 13 or 14 years old, I actually wanted to become an English teacher, but not in Norway. I wanted to become an English teacher in Japan because I would watch these vloggers on YouTube and they would walk around, and I just thought the culture looked so good over there. Like, I loved the temples and shrines, as well as just in general how it looks over there. It's so clean. And I really like the language too. So I thought, okay, I can kill two birds with one stone by, becoming an English teacher and moving there to learn Japanese instead of, trying to learn it by myself at home. So my desire to get my bachelor's degree was actually to pursue my dream, which was to, go to Japan and become an English teacher and at least try and live there for a few years. I know a lot of people, even back in the day, the vloggers would say that Japan isn't really the best country to live in because the work conditions aren't as good, and they can be there's a bit of racism over there. I don't really know much about that part, but yeah, like if you immigrate to Japan as a foreigner, you'll always be a foreigner, even if you get a Japanese passport or whatever. But that really didn't bother me. I just wanted to go there and live in the culture, live in the moment. So yeah, that's where I got my drive from.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's cool. Didn't realize how deep it went. And so I guess you would have fell in love with Japan when you went there when you're 18 as well, I guess.
Yeah, definitely I did. When I went there, I thought, well, this is super nice. And that's also a thing. A lot of people say that going to Japan as a tourist is, like the greatest thing ever. But living there is a different story. But I'm more like a person who likes to at least give things a try and see how it goes. And if it's as bad as people say it is, well then okay, I'll just go back to Norway. But I would be willing to sacrifice a a couple, 3, 4 years of my life to try and live my dream. And if the dream isn't what I thought it would be, I would just move back.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then so you decide to come to the US. How did you hear about Augie?
Yeah, so the funny thing is, because I went to a boarding school for my last year in high school in Norway, and we went on a school trip to France and Belgium. And while on the school trip, one of the administration workers were with us. He was also one of the guys who could drive a bus, so he was one of the drivers as well. I sat down with him and had a conversation because all of the teachers and all the people working at that boarding school, they're very they include themselves in the classrooms and the people, so they walk around and talk to people, and he so I sat down with him and he asked me what I want to do after high school. Then I told him, well, I want to study English, and then he asked me where would you want to study English? And then I said, well, probably the university here in Agder, which is a province in Norway, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
And then he told me, well, that's not a bad idea, but wouldn't it be better to study English in an English-speaking country? And then I said, well, yeah, probably. And then he told me that I would get much more out of my degree by going to an English-speaking country, because I wouldn't just know or learn the theory behind English, but I would also live in an English culture and experience the culture and the differences that you get.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue. So when you're in the US, was it much of a culture change from all your time in Norway growing up?
I guess this is actually a bit of a culture shock for you as well. I'm not sure, but when we were living in the Midwest, people have this tendency to be nice.
Overly
like
nice.
They would, yeah, or overly nice. Yeah, they would pretty much constantly ask you like, "Hey man, how's it going?" But then they actually don't want to hear how it's going. That's just the way they greet people. And I didn't realize that until a few months during my stay there. So whenever people ask me, "Hey man, how's it going?" I would be like, yeah, it's going pretty well. And then I was expecting a conversation to start, but no conversation started, and they just kept on moving. They just kept on walking. And then I thought, well, that was kind of weird, because and this kind of goes back to Norway, because Norway is a rather cold country, I guess you could call it. People are usually colder to each other here. If you go on a bus, for instance, nobody wants you to sit next to them, and they expect you, if there's other seats, they expect you to go and sit by yourself and not engage in any conversation. As well as on the bus stop, if you go to a bus stop and there is another person there, unless you really got a question, usually the norm is to not really say anything, just stand there and be silent. And in the US, that's completely different. You can go to a store and you just walk past somebody at random, and they'll be like, "Oh, hey man, nice shirt," or they'll say, "Oh, well, nice hat," or something like that, and they kind of spark up a conversation. And yeah, I thought that was the biggest culture thing for me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think it is kind of interesting to hear that, because I feel like the culture difference from Australia to the US maybe isn't so big, but I think we both definitely felt that, especially the first couple of weeks and months we were there, that it was such a big kind of, I feel like everyone was just trying to be super friendly, and like I think there were yeah, I guess in the Midwest there were a lot of super friendly people, but then you also do get that kind of, I guess, more superficial where it's kind of like, oh, hey, how's it going? But maybe people aren't actually interested to hear the other end of that question, hear the answer.
Mm.
So I guess, well, let's keep walking through our time at Augie. So we got there. You've had your Mexican. Is there any other memories you can think of? What was that? What do you remember next?
Yeah, so after getting the Mexican food, I obviously just went to bed and I just passed out. And in the morning, I would be shown around Augie by Nishma and David. And they would show me the commons where we would eat. And because I got there a little bit early,
Yeah, you
or
did.
earlier than most people. So I was there for, I can't remember how many days, but I was there pretty much alone, with the exception of some people for a few days before all the other international students came in.
Yeah.
And
I think you were there a good 3 or 4 days before I got there, and I came still like a bit earlier than other people as well.
So I can't really remember what I did during that time.
Well,
I
it's
think I
interesting
might.
that Nishma and David were the first people that you met, and we over the couple of years, or I guess were they seniors that year or juniors, I think. So we got to spend at least a year, if not two, hanging out with them, and they were some of our really good friends as well. So I'm surprised to
Yeah,
hear that they were the ones that picked you up from the airport.
yeah. I think that was because they were involved in the international office or the international students office. Because I can remember that the international office asked at least me if I was willing to help out the new incoming students. But I didn't have an American driver's license, and I didn't have a car either. So it was a no-go for me. But I think that was what they were doing, just
Yeah.
volunteering to help out new students. But weren't they also on our trip to the Black Hills?
They
So
would have been, yeah.
yeah, and so uh,
What do
yeah.
you remember about that trip? Can you, maybe to someone who doesn't know what that Black Hills trip is, what is that?
So when we went to the Black Hills, I didn't really know what to expect. The name Black Hills, I kind of thought that the hills would be darker in color or it would be black over there or something. But what I remember is that we went on this bus trip, which was really nice. A lot of people and a lot of friendly people and mostly international students. So everyone was in the same boat. And we went on a trip, and we first, you have to correct me if I'm wrong about this, but
Yeah.
first we got to this prairie kind of area with the rocks, like sandy, almost like a desert.
Yeah. Now the
Uh,
name's slipping me. What's that called? The dang.
wasn't that the Black Hills?
Oh, that's the Badlands. Badlands National
Yeah,
Park.
yeah, the Badlands. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Badlands. And after we got to the Badlands and explored some areas around there, and that was a fun place to go because they had this town over there which had these buildings that looked like they were from the Wild West. And it was definitely a tourist area, but it was a really cool area. And I thought, well, this is living like a cowboy or something. And after we were down over there, we went to I guess the Black Hills, or the mountain,
Yeah.
or up in the mountainous area, right before we got to Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
see,
I remember,
Yeah, that was a big, I guess, yeah. Probably South Dakota's one of very few sites to actually see in South Dakota. So we had to drive on that bus from Sioux Falls across the other side of the state. That's a 5-hour bus trip by itself. And I guess how many international students were there? There would have been 40 or 50.
yeah, weren't we driving 2 buses?
There probably was 2. So yeah, it was probably like 80, I think. was so long ago.
Yeah.
That was 7 years ago.
7?
Yeah.
Oh, time flies by. Yeah. And when we got to that mountainous area, I thought that was really cool because it was just so, there were so many trees and it was just so alive, you know?
Yeah.
Because in Sioux Falls, it's super flat and there are just corn everywhere.
Yeah. I think
Uh,
it'd be easy to see why people might think that the Earth is flat living in Sioux Falls because it's pretty damn flat and just
it
cornfields
is.
going for miles.
Yeah. So yeah, then we stayed at that area in the Black Hills or up in, you know, the forest. I can't remember the
We
name
were
of that.
staying
Oh,
in-
actually, oh,
What's that? What have you got?
when we went there, I got myself a sweater.
Oh, did you?
And
Oh, I
and
remember that
this-
one. That's that where you bought it.
yeah.
Dang.
Well, is it mirrored?
Oh, that's okay. Storm Mountain Center.
Yeah, Storm Mountain Center, serving since 1957.
Yeah, 'cause
And,
he used to wear that all the time. I didn't realize that's actually where you bought it from, but it makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, I bought that one over there because I thought, well, I kind of want to cherish this moment, this memory. And so after we were there, I think it was, well, we stayed there, and the day after we went to Mount Rushmore, and then we went back. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can't remember, to be honest. I think because yeah, I ended up doing that trip 3 years later as an ACE ambassador. So like, yeah, I think I can't remember exactly how it went, but what sort of highlights were there? Like, what did you enjoy so much? Because you said, yeah, I mean, you bought a jumper and you wanted to cherish those memories. What were some of those memories that really stood out for you?
I guess just the trip with meeting new people. That's where, because as far as I can remember, I don't think I really got to know you during that trip. But I do remember very well that that's the trip where I became friends with 2 people, Aaron and Zawad.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that because we were walking up that mountain. Can you remember the name of that mountain?
Which one?
The tall one, the one that takes an hour or two to walk up or hike up.
Was that at the campsite? Oh no, that's Black Elk Peak. Yeah.
Yeah, Black Elk Peak.
That's one of the best hikes I think I've ever done. That was amazing.
Oh, it was. And while we were doing that hike, I just randomly just walked up to, I believe it was Zawad, and then I just started talking to him. And because he was walking all alone, and I couldn't let him walk alone. So I walked up to him and started to talk with him. And I think I did the same with Aaron, or that he had already talked a little bit with Zawad, so he kind of joined us. And that's how we became friends. And we still talk every now and then to this day.
Yeah.
And I guess that's well, that's not really the reason why I bought the sweater
So I'm gonna
or the
buy
jumper, but
the Storm Mountain grey sweater because of that.
I don't know. It was probably because when we were in the Badlands and we went to the tourist areas over there where they had these souvenir shops,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I found anything that I thought that I would get any use out of. But a sweater or a jumper, that's something you can always wear
Yeah.
or use.
Yeah. Well, I think at that point of time, so the start of the school year, this is August. This would have been August 2016. I mean, that's springtime. No, fall or autumn in the US. So like the weather was still super nice and hot then. But later we would find out that during the middle of winter it'd get to ridiculously cold temperatures. But yeah, somehow you must have known that you'll need that sweater. That's what I was gonna say. I've been looking through lots of old photos, and you said that we maybe didn't become super close friends on that first trip, but I have lots of photos and with Snapchat filters of, dog ears and all sorts of stuff, which I can put up. And you're falling asleep on the bus, and
I remember
I just put
now.
my arm kind of out around you and just take a picture with the filter on. You're just fast asleep sitting there in the chair. I did a whole bunch of them as well.
Yeah, I remember now. So I must have just I just must have remembered wrong because my first memory of you is when we were down in the lounge area in Bergsåker.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I just heard you speak, and I thought, well, there's a cool dialect or accent over here. And then I walked over and I just said hello.
Yeah.
So that must have been before the Black Hills trip.
That was. Yeah, see, I remember that quite well because I had messaged in the international group chat because I got in the night before, late at night, and I just got dumped in my room, and I was like, woke up in the morning having absolutely no clue where anything was, what I was supposed to do, like what the hell was going on, didn't know anyone. So that's why I messaged in the group chat, and then you, and then there was someone else that came downstairs and we were going to go to breakfast together. Do you remember who that was?
No.
No. I mean, you don't have to.
I do not remember.
Because for me, it sticks out because that was basically like the first kind of interaction I had with anyone over there, really, apart from the night before. But it was you and Michaela, came downstairs to meet me, and yeah, you two took me over to the Commons because I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and we got my ID done, we took the photo and stuff, and then went up for some breakfast in the Commons.
Oh.
Yeah.
I can't remember how I met Mika, though. I can't remember at
we
all.
probably met then. It was probably that moment that the three of us met for the first time.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably we were just all walking down in the lounge because we had no idea what to do.
Yeah. And because
then we just met.
So funny, my first impression of you, because I mean, you were just this kind of big, strong Norwegian Viking type guy. And it's like, he's from Norway. It's like, oh my gosh, that's super intimidating. And I think I found out pretty early on that you were a couple of years older as well. I was like, oh, this guy just, he's the boss. He runs everything. So that's what I remember. And also I've got the photos of you on the bus, but also I found there's a photo of me, Naoki, and Zawad at that first the pit stop that we took. I forget the name of the place. It's Chamberlain, I think it is, with that big Indian statue, or I think that's what it is. Yeah. So there's a photo of
that's
us
where
there. Yeah, I think that's interesting because later on, you said that you just walked up to Zawad on the trail, met him then, and so I guess we were kind of all sort of that was when we were all starting to meet each other. And that, like, all of us have been like close friends ever since then as well.
Yeah, we have. And I think for Augustana University to make that trip for new international students, I think that's the best thing they could have done.
Yeah.
Because, getting along with new people, becoming friends with people takes a lot of effort. And especially if you don't get forced in a kind of way to have a conversation with others. But when the school just says, well, we're going on a trip, guys, and nobody knows each other, people just have to, I guess it's just human instinct. We have to talk to one another and get to know who's who and where they're from.
I agree entirely. And I think a lot of people that we'll have on the show will also agree too, because that trip, the melty pot where we just all come from different countries and we're just stuck in this spot, but then we get to go and do all these nice activities out in the Black Hills and the Badlands and just have like the best time ever.
Hmm.
So moving things along a little bit, do you remember much else from your freshman year? Like maybe some, like if the first class that you ever took? Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah.
And
Tell us about that.
so my first class that I ever went to was English 240, and I was not ready. So when I got into that class and I sat down, I remember the professor. I can't remember his name, but he was sputtering some words that I had no idea what meant. And I sat down and he said, and this is actually kind of funny because I can't remember ever being taught the word curriculum
Curriculum, yeah.
before. Yeah, curriculum. So when I sat down and the professor said that, well, okay, so people take a look at your curriculums, I thought to myself, what does that mean? What am I supposed to do? And I had absolutely no idea. And then I just looked at the others in the class and I saw, well, they're opening up some kind of paper, and I have that paper here, and I'll do the same. I'll just play along. And when I did that and the class really started, I realized that this class is way too advanced for me at the current level I'm at. And that's mostly because there were a lot of complicated words that I didn't really know how to describe at that point.
Yeah.
I guess if you're an English speaker, I guess you're taught. Well, we were taught what symbolism is in Norway as well, but when you do it in a different language, it's a little bit different in a way. So what happened with that class was that I failed it, but I did go to every single class through the semester, and it did actually teach me a lot, because every time I heard a new word or read a new word in one of the papers or the books we had, I would search up the words and read the definition of the word, and then I would remember it to the next time.
Fantastic.
And also observation. I would look at the others in class and see how they do things in class. When the professor says something and they want to ask a question, how do they do it? Because in Norway, it's always raise a hand, but in a different culture, in a different country, it might be different. And one thing that I did over there, but I don't remember if that was my first class or if that was one of the other classes I had. Here in Norway, when you're in class, I don't know how it is on a university level, but at least in high school and below, if you have to go to the bathroom, you have to ask the teacher if that's okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I asked the professor, "Hey, mind if I go to the toilet or go to the bathroom?" And then he said, and then he just looked at me in a weird way and he said, "Well, you don't have to ask, just go."
Oh my god, that's hilarious. I think
everyone.
I mean, I would have done the same thing. And especially, so you're in English 240, so the class levels go 100s are all sort of the entry level classes. The 200 levels, the intermediate, and then the 300 and above are, getting pretty advanced along the scale. So for you, a non-native English speaker, to jump into an English 240 class, that's probably a class that I would probably even struggle with, to be honest. And that was your very first class that you took in your first semester, and you may have failed it, but you still stuck it out, and from what it seems like, you learned a lot from that.
And I did take that class again because it was one of the mandatory classes for my degree or my major. So I took that class again in, I think it was junior year, and at that point it went very well. I had no issues at all.
Amazing.
Because then I understood the system. I understood how we were supposed to complete our papers and how to write them properly and how to set them up properly. Because we had the first year seminar class, which taught us a few of those things.
Yeah, okay. And then, well, speaking of FYS or first year seminar, did you because that was an important group of people because we during welcome week, which was kind of that week after we got to college, after the week after the Black Hills trip, I mean, we sort of, and that's when all the American students started to filter in. So we just sort of started to get in our little cliques with our like from the international students, and then all of a sudden we just get bombarded with hundreds and hundreds of all these new American students as well. And so FYS was just a group that we had that we spent time during welcome week. So it's kind of a bit of a just a group with two leaders, so we can kind of just get familiar. We can all call upon each other if we need some help. But then we also took a class together, which was just like an introductory English class. And so, did you have a good group of people that you were with? Good group of students?
I don't really remember much from FYS because I just thought that class was boring and I didn't really like it. But the activities we did together every now and then, if that's because I remember we were over in the Element Center and I was a part of the sheep group. Which part were you of? Are
you talking? Is that the talent show or something?
No, it's not a talent show.
I remember we did that at some point too.
I believe I have a picture of you. I don't have it right now, but you were wearing a cape with swimming goggles, and you were standing like on the side, and you ran across
really
across the court, and you walked up, and there was a stage there and everything. And I think that was our
wasn't that like a
FYS
talent show kind of thing? Or like we had to perform something, didn't we? I can't remember the details of it, but because we all the freshman students gathered in the Elman Center with the grandstand sort of pulled up, and we performed something on the stage. I remember that. So I was wearing goggles and a cape, was I?
Yeah, you were.
I don't remember that at all.
I think maybe you were part of a swimming team or something.
Right.
Like I can't remember the name of it, but that's I can't really remember much about that. But anyway, about FYS, I can't remember who was in my class in FYS.
Really?
FYS. Yeah, I only remember one person from my second semester of FYS, and that was Naoki.
Yeah, that's interesting because like for me, like I know everyone that was in that class, and I think not all of them, became like my best friends or anything, but I really connected with all those people. It obviously took a little bit to kind of open up to everyone, but I very much cherish my FYS class. So it's interesting that you don't even really remember who was in it. Just so it's it just shows how different our experiences were, even though we were doing pretty much the same thing.
Definitely.
Any other highlights from freshman year or some dark times? You obviously, cruised through FYS, the English component, because you were struggling with the English 240 component. But any activities? What about Halloween? Do you remember anything about that first year? Because that's a big cultural difference. Even like we don't have that in Australia. That's very much an American thing.
Well, we do have a lot of Halloween stuff. Well, we don't really have tons of Halloween stuff when you go out shopping here in Norway. But so that was cool. I thought when I went to Hy-Vee or Walmart or any of those stores, and you saw all these Halloween decorations everywhere. But I don't really remember much from freshman year Halloween because I think that year the only thing I did was go to I think I was in the Element Center for the event over there, or I might have gone partying, but I don't remember. If I did, I do not remember.
Well, I guess, and that's part of why I'm asking, because a lot of freshman year and I think sophomore year, I don't really remember in much detail because it kind of gets overwritten by, years 3 and 4 because those are just the more recent ones. So, well, let's fast forward a bit. We'll go to the end of freshman year. What did you do for summer break that year?
So I went back to Norway, and when I got back to Norway, I managed to get a summer job, and that was at my old boarding school. So I had a job there for the summer as a cleaner.
Yeah.
And so I had to completely clean every single room in a boarding school, and that school had, I'm not sure about the exact amount, but at least 50 plus rooms,
right?
Or dorm rooms, and I would walk around and clean every single one of those, getting them ready for the next semester,
right.
which is in August.
Yeah, I remember.
And
so that was your summer job. You just went home so you could earn as much cash as you could come back the following year.
Yeah, I did, and not really a lot happened that summer.
Yeah. Well, what else can we ask? Like, what did you have? So your English major, which we can confirm that after 3.5 years you did actually graduate and get that degree. So well done.
Thank you.
Did you have? Would you say that your English classes were any of those your favorite classes, or was it maybe something else?
So I would say that my favorite class, or my favorite classes, I would say astronomy was one of my favorite classes.
Ah, yes. Actually, that rings a few bells now. I remember you talking about that class.
Yeah, it was really hard, but I thought the professor really did a good job of, how what kind of grading system he used. So he would have everyone take every test individually, but after we did it individually, we would do it with our group mates sitting around, because we were sitting around round tables. So we were usually in a groups of 4 people, I think 3 or 4. And after we did the test individually, we would hand in the paper, and he would hand out the exact same paper, but then we would do it as a group, and the group score would count as, I think it was 50% of the total score.
All right.
So even if you kind of flopped on one of the tests, your group could save you. And I was super lucky, and I always had a physics major sitting at my table. So
there you go. That's
we had So we had no problem. But that's not really the reason why I liked the class, because had I had to do all the physics stuff alone, I think I would have struggled a lot. But I really like the idea of understanding how the universe works, as well as we went out and we actually used a telescope. And that was the first time in my entire life that I've even tried a telescope. And the professor made us look at Saturn and Mars, I think, as well as the moon. So we were shown 2 planets and 1 moon.
Oh,
and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Because actually, as we got there, our freshman year, I believe that was the first year that they had opened the new science center. And didn't they built a telescope as well, didn't they? Like a dome and an actual like full on telescope that's gonna go deep into space.
I think that was at a later time. I think I can remember the professor talking about it, but it was not done yet.
Oh, so you didn't even get to use that?
Yeah, he actually took one of his personal telescopes to the schools to let us use that one, because that was like a super good telescope.
Yeah.
He could just click on a button and it would just automatically like go to Saturn.
That's incredible.
Because it was connected to his phone, and there was kind of some kind of magic going on. But other than that, just the sheer sizes of planets and stuff just really intrigued me. So when I was taught how to do the calculations to just look at the light from a planet, and I can tell you the mass, and because of the mass I could also tell you the size. It was really interesting, and I loved that class. But that's just because it was a tiny interest in the space and universe, and not really a particular interest in physics, because I'm not really a physics guy.
Yeah, I find that fascinating because, well, yeah, I think that was kind of the benefit that we actually did have from going to Augustana, which was a liberal arts college, is that we did get to try different classes that weren't just, aligned with our major. It wasn't just English classes you took, like you had to take science class and other classes too. And just on that, of your love of the universe, I think we had lots of conspiracy theories, lots of good discussions at the Commons, which was where we would go to eat. That was our cafeteria. Do you remember any of those conversations that we were pondering?
I'm not really sure, but I do remember that we were talking a lot about different things there, because I would spend hours in the comments. I would say, well, if one day I had a class at, let's say, 9 in the morning, and my next class was at 2 o'clock, I would sit in the comments from 10 o'clock until 1:50. I would sit there for like 3-4 hours, and because I would go and sit down with somebody I know, and then that person would say, "Oh, I have a class in 10 minutes. I gotta go." But the moment they walk away, another person comes.
The revolving door of the Commons, magical.
Yeah, and another one that I know would come, and I would sit there and I would think to myself, "Well, I'm not gonna let them sit here alone. I'm gonna keep them company, because I don't really have anything better to do." I guess I could have been a better student and studied during that time, but I just sat down and I had conversations at dirt. And as for your question, that's where we got into some kind of really weird kind of conversations every now and then. But
I remember talking about the Stonehenge and also the pyramids as well. We were kind of trying to theorize how they all came to be.
Yeah. And I love those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the type of person who loves to just talk about that kind of stuff. So the commons, or the common area, was the greatest thing for me.
Yeah.
Over at Augie.
Would you say that is like one of your best, like the best things about Augie, was being able to have those conversations?
In the commons, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, because I felt like we were able to build a deep connection and relationships while we were in the commons, because it's in a common space area. So you don't feel like, if you want to get to know somebody, you might feel that it's a little bit forced if you go to their dorm room, knock on the door and ask like, "Hey, want to hang out or want to talk?" But when you're in the commons and you see them walk in, and you can just wave at them, and they might actually see you, and they'd be, come over, and that's
for 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of my highlights at Augie too, is the commons, and just grabbing whatever food they're serving up, and then go along the whole wall of the different coloured drinks and different flavours. You can tap each different one and get a little bit of each, and go sit down next to people, and then revolving door of conversations.
Yeah, and one thing that I regret during freshman year was that I was doing the keto diet in the beginning.
I remember
in the beginning of the year, which kind of made me hold back going to Buffalo Wild Wings with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had this thing going on for months where every single Friday you would go to Buffalo Wild Wings.
Sunday.
And was it Sunday?
Sunday was the student discount. After, I think it was 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. maybe it was even, students would get 50% off.
Okay, then it was every Sunday. I remembered wrong, but yeah, I wish if I could turn back time, I would just, don't do the keto diet, because it only took a few months after I ended the keto diet for my weight to kind of fluctuate back to normal. But yeah,
So
then I would have been able to go there and become even better friends with you.
So, well, what do you remember about the nights at Buffalo Wild Wings? What made them so special? Because, I mean, obviously the wings were good, but that's not really the reason why we went.
I think it was the feeling of doing something together with your friends. Maybe also because it's a weekly thing. So you have this plan that, like, we go with the boys or the boys and gals to a place to eat, and also it's a nice thing to eat with your friends. But other than that, I think it was also the environment in Buffalo Wild Wings. It was different. It was almost like a pub, but not a pub.
They're good atmosphere because like a sports bar. So there's TVs playing all different sports and highlight clips and all that. But I think, well, what stood out for me, like obviously on top of all that stuff with hanging out with friends and, getting some good food, was it was kind of almost a bit of an evil, because we would go knowing full willingly we had homework due the next morning on Monday, but we're like, screw it, we're going to go hang out and have a good time anyway. I think that's what I really enjoyed about it too, is that we would just do it in a bit of a careless attitude, but it was good fun.
And also one thing I would like to add is it's always nice to get a little bit away from how am I going to phrase this? So you're kind of stuck around the school in the dormitory area. Like you got your dorm, you got your food hall, and it's always nice to get away from that place for a little bit. Instead of being stuck at school 24/7 for the entire year, you can leave the school area and you can go to Buffalo Wild Wings, and you kind of get this rest from that place. You don't get as tired of it. I guess.
Yeah, it's a good change of scenery because, well, obviously living on campus in the dorm and just going between classes, you are spending pretty much all your time at school, which doesn't sound fun, but I mean, even just living in the dorms I found to be pretty fun because, I mean, we used to live on the same floor freshman year, and I think a few more years after that too. We can just walk down the hallway, knock on the door. Hey, you want to come and hang out? Yep, sure, let's go. Did you enjoy living in the dorms?
I did. Well, I did. I definitely did. I guess the freshman year was the roughest year because we lived on the same floor as the football players.
We did, yeah. That was pretty chaotic.
So every single weekend we would hear, at least I would hear somebody shouting and screaming, and there's this one particular moment that I remember that I think it was two roommates. And one of them was arguing with the other. And the only thing I remember is that he said, well, you know what? I got 2 GameCubes and you want to leave me? You want to go to that dude, the other dude? You want to move in with him? Well, I got 2 GameCubes, dude. and then they would bang the door and everything. And I thought, well, how serious is this? How serious is this?
Yeah, I mean, you just can't tell, honestly, half the time. It just sounds like a bad breakup. Don't leave me, I've got 2 GameCubes.
And one more thing I would like to add is ever since I was little, I've always had this kind of thing where I get nervous when I'm in bathroom stalls. Like
Right.
if I go to a bathroom stall and there's somebody sitting in the stall next to me, I kind of want to be as quiet as possible. Now, I don't know why, but it's just this thought or feeling that I have. So I'm not being able. In the beginning, I could not sit down and relax while I was taking a shit. I was sitting there and I thought, okay, I need to wait for the perfect time, the perfect moment. So the moment he walks out that door, I'll press as hard as possible to get it out and be done with it so nobody can hear me.
Yeah. And before someone else comes in as well. Because we just had the shared bathrooms in the middle of, a row of doors of rooms and another row, and then in the middle was all the bathroom and the showers and stuff. So had to be quick with it.
But here's the catch. Do you think the American football players care at all when they go to the bathroom?
Not at all.
They do not. So while I was sitting there, I remember it fondly because I was sitting there and there would be like 2 or 3 guys walking in and they would all sit down and it was almost like they had a competition of who could make the loudest farts and yeah.
My God.
So I was sitting there and I thought, well, I guess it doesn't really matter if I just,
Join in, let one rip.
kind of join in, but just use the bathroom normally, and it helped me. I'm cured. I can go to public bathrooms and I can take a shit without feeling nervous.
Do we have shared showers on the freshman year in Berg soccer? I think we did, didn't we?
We did. I remember them being like, you walked into the bathroom, you took, it depended on which side you got in there, but I would usually take the side where I would go to the left and there's the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And it would go, there was this corridor going down for maybe 5-6 meters or something. No, it was probably longer, 10 meters or something. And there would be these stalls in between. And I can't remember if there was even curtains on them.
I don't know if there was. I remember there was, and I think you're right. On one side they were kind of sectioned off, but the other side was like, 4 or 5 shower heads, and like it was just all open. So you just had to, if you were going to go on that side, you just had to jump in, I guess, with a lot of football guys who happened to be living on our floor. Needless to say, I didn't really go on that side.
Yeah, I only ever used the one with the stalls. I can't even remember even walking over to the other side to check it out. I had like my stall, the one that I used every single time, and there was one time it was filled up with puke to the brim because one of the football guys had been partying and he just went to the stall and he puked all over it, and it was a hard time. Yeah. I had to use another stall.
Hey, that's mine.
Yeah.
It's funny how that is. You just kind of, choose your own, get in your routine. So, I mean, we can kind of, interested to hear if you could give your experience at Augie, if you could give it a grade, a letter grade, what would you give it?
I would give it a solid. I would give it a solid B-.
B-, okay. Why?
It was a great experience. I hated some of the professors. I thought they were absolute dum-dums because of how they would behave. Like it didn't feel like they wanted to teach anybody. So they were just in a class and they were lifeless and walk in and they would not be helpful at all, like make things overly complicated. And that was one thing that kind of dragged my experience down. And another experience is that I kinda got into a relationship freshman year, and when I think back at it, I wish I didn't, because I would have been able to spend more time with the boys.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't really the greatest experience for me. It was a bit of a culture shock in itself, the relationship part about it. But other than that,
Because I remember that was yeah, like we don't have to go too deep into that relationship, but I remember, especially on the other side of that, after you guys had broken up, I remember you were pretty kind of upset about it, sort of like, I don't know how you describe it, but you kind of came out of that and you were just a bit shocked. You kind of like, what the hell was that? Maybe that wasn't the best thing.
yeah, yeah. But I guess we don't have to go any deeper into that.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so that, at least that thing kind of takes down the grade a little bit, and it's not really my experience at Augie, but it's just the overall. It's about the price, getting student loan for a bachelor in arts,
Yeah.
with a major in English, and you go and you get yourself in debt for something. At least in my case, I have absolutely no use of my bachelor's degree, because in the beginning, when we started talking, I talked about Japan and how my dream was to go to Japan. And my reason of going to the US was because I thought, okay, I can prove that I've got a diploma. I've got my bachelor's in the US, in an English-speaking country. I've lived there for 3.5 years. So there shouldn't be really any issues at all getting a job in a non-English speaking country as an English teacher. Or even the job that I applied for wasn't even an English teacher position. It was a teacher assistant position. Wow. So my job would be to help the teacher out and help him with pronunciations, because usually the teachers are Japanese themselves, but they haven't been able to practice pronunciations, and they don't know how to pronounce certain words correctly. And I guess, to be humble, I pronounce a lot of things very weird sometimes, and I get things wrong all the time, but at least I could help in that way. And I did get a bachelor's, and with my major in English, but because the immigration office declined my request, because according to them, I do not have enough English speaking experience for a non-native to get a job in their country. And because of that, I feel like my degree was not worth it. My getting into as much student loan as I have was not worth it. But my time at Augie with you and all my other friends over there was definitely worth it, because I personally, I think no price can be you can't price or put a value on your friends. I think the value on friends, or let me rephrase that, the value on friends are higher, a lot higher than just a pesky student loan.
Yeah.
But that might sound like a bad idea, so anybody listening to this should not follow in my footsteps.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's interesting that you would grade your experience as a B minus, despite not actually using your degree, which is ultimately why you would go to college. And you said that despite having such a big student loan, you still thought it was worth it with the experiences that you had with your friends, which is amazing.
Yeah, because now I know you, and I can travel to Australia, and I got somewhere I can sleep and chill out for free, hopefully.
Absolutely, you bet.
Yeah, and the same thing with Vietnam, Bangladesh, Ecuador, and a lot of different places. Well, I got a lot of American friends too, and I bet they would happily take me in if I come visiting, as I would with you and all the others. Like if you ever come to Norway, you can come and stay at my place for free.
It's on the list.
I'll make tacos.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you've learnt the Gilberto special, the real tacos.
The real tacos.
Yeah. So, is there any advice that you would give to someone who is potentially thinking about going abroad and studying in the US?
Okay, my advice would be to really look into what you're after and how it's going to affect the way you're gonna achieve your goal. Because in my case, with the whole Japan thing, if I really made sure that if I go there, get the bachelor, I'll get into the country and get a job with no problem. It would have made everything so much more worth it. Meanwhile, if you just think to yourself, "Oh, I'm young, I want to go and study abroad," but you have no particular goal in mind, I don't think that's the best idea, because colleges and universities in the US are expensive AF.
Yeah, very. So
really consider that before jumping in the boat and joining the college or university.
Yeah. So with all that said, then, would you go back and do it all again?
I would, but the thing is, I would if I could have made some changes along the way. I definitely would.
Yeah. Which I think you already covered some of those changes, yeah. More time at B-dubs. Anything else?
No relationships. And more time with the boys. But also study more. Be a better student. Because I can only imagine... well, I don't really know if anything would have made a difference if it would have made a difference if I got a double or triple major. I don't know if that's just for show or if it's actually useful, but my intention when I first got to Augie was to go for a double major, but I ended up only finishing as a single major.
But then you haven't used your major anyway, so probably wouldn't have made any difference.
I haven't. Well, actually, I might correct that a little bit because...
Oh, there goes the calculator.
Nice. When I first got back to Norway after my time at Augie, I was not walking around, but I was looking for jobs, and I wasn't able to find any job except for a long time. But then there was this school that I went to. It was one of the older high schools I went to, and I just walked in and I said, "Hey, you guys need somebody who can teach English?" And then the receptionist told me that, well, we actually need a substitute teacher. And she showed me to, I guess, the leader of the school, or not the principal, but one of the, what do you call it?
One of the managers.
One of the managers for one of the classes. And he said, "Oh, good thing you're here. You can teach English." Yes. And then he gave me a 2-hour per week job. So it was only 2 hours a week. Where I would be a substitute teacher. But the thing is, I did not get any increased pay because of my bachelor. And my bachelor did not matter in that case because on paper, I was an uneducated English teacher. Because my major, my bachelor and major, does not count as being a professional English teacher or somebody who's professional in English.
Yeah.
At least here in Norway, because the whole university thing is different in Norway than it is in a liberal arts university.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Because I assume you wouldn't have known. Well, yeah, you wouldn't have known that going into it. You would have thought, well, I've got my bachelor's in English, should be all good to go, teach English wherever I want. But maybe that's not the case. So,
It's not.
and then, so what have you done after college? Your time since then?
After college, I got a job in a grocery store, and I was working in a grocery store for almost 2 years until I got into this program, which, if I roughly translate it into English, it's basically a man in healthcare. So a manly healthcare worker.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I really enjoy that program. It makes me actually, when I go back to the question of whether I would have done something different at Augie, maybe I would have, instead of taking English, I would have taken nursing. Because
and Augie does have a big nursing program too.
they do. Because as I'm currently going through this process of becoming a certified professional healthcare worker, I realized that I really enjoy it. So I've worked in a nursing home for a long time, patients with dementia, and it was a great experience. I love being able to help people out, and I was there for 11 months, and during that time period, I also went to school and took some classes for. It's not really nursing classes or nurse-specific classes, but they kind of thread together in a way. So we learn a little bit about different diseases and sickness, diseases and procedures that nurses and healthcare workers would use.
Yeah.
So, and after that time, I've now been working for 5 months in the in-home. What was it called again? In-home nursing. Is that what you call it? In-home nursing?
So you go to people's houses and their homes and you just take care of them in their own home.
Yeah. So I would go to people's homes and I would help them take their medicines, because some of them are really scared taking the wrong medicines or taking too much medicine. So I would go there and I would give them the right medicines with the right amount, as well as I would help some patients with exercise, because they might have had a oh man, I can only remember the Norwegian word for it right now, but it's where basically give me 1 second here.
See, I mean, you've done so well, because it's been 3 years since you graduated, and you've just been in Norway that whole time, so you haven't had a lot of chance to be using your English skills, but they're pretty damn good.
Stroke.
Choke?
Yeah. No, stroke.
Oh, stroke.
So
Yes.
so stroke patients who have lost the ability to fully move their limbs. One of my jobs is to still help them, kind of try to get some exercise in those limbs, unless they're completely paralyzed in one of their limbs. Usually they can move around a little bit, so help them pretty much exercise up their bodies and change diapers, wipe their asses,
all the good stuff. Yeah,
all
great.
the good stuff. But it's a good experience. I love helping people.
Yeah, I think it is a very important thing to do, and someone has to be helping these people. And I think knowing you over those 4 years or 3.5 years at Augie, because you left a semester early, because you're so smart. Knowing you for those 3.5 years, you were always a super caring person. So I mean, it's kind of pretty easy to see you in that healthcare role now. And so you're liking that, you're enjoying that. What's next for you? What's your future plans, goals, aspirations?
So right now, I want to complete the program that I'm doing after I get certified.
How long will that take?
It's about 18 months from now. and I'll
Okay.
be done.
Yeah.
And then it's a little bit difficult to kind of explain how that system works there, but it's something similar to being certified. A certified healthcare worker, I'll be done. I'll be certified in 18 months. And currently I'm considering that, or I'm thinking about it. When I'm done, maybe I'll go into a nursing program and become a nurse. But if I do not want to do that, I plan to just work for a few years, try to save up some money, and if I hurt my back, because I've hurt it a few times before, I might reconsider going back into teaching position. But right now, I really enjoy what I do. I smile every day at work because there are so many funny conversations and a lot of kind, caring old people that just wishes you the best, and you're helping them out, and they're so grateful. And I've never experienced that in any other job before.
That's amazing. Well done. Well, Kevin, thank you for your time here. Thanks for going back to college with me. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you have too. Any last words? Final thoughts?
No, not really.
No. All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.